Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and I'm going to have a two-part video for this particular project. The first part is how to block a panel. We all love our panels. They're fun to use, they're big, and they're beautiful, but sometimes they're just not perfectly square. So in this part, we're going to talk about blocking, which means we're not doing any cutting. We are going to block it on the iron so it stays straight, and it's going to be straight when we need it. The second part, we're going to use a panel. Now I'm going to be using a panel from Northcott, and it is a advent calendar. So they're a lot of fun to work with. They're quick and easy. And in that video, we're going to have a lot of fun. I have some great little tips and techniques to go along the way. But for today, let's get this panel blocked. An advent calendar panel is this long panel, and it's all in one piece. And we get to fold these up, and they're going to make pockets to put little things in. But a lot of times they're not straight, so we need to straighten them up. The first thing I like to do is wash that panel. The reason is it gets rid of some of the starch and the sizing, and that way I'm going to be able to work with that fabric a lot easier because it's going to be softer to work with. So I'm going to wash the panel first, and then after that I'm going to trim it. Because those selvages are tighter, we need to trim that fabric off. We only need to go about 1/4 of an inch just to trim off this main hard piece of fabric, because we're going to want to move this fabric a little, and I don't want this to hold it into place. A lot of times along the sides you can have little additional things. So I like to cut in between the additional stuff on the side and my edge. So I'm going to have a little bit of this background fabric on both pieces. On the one side, there's going to be lines that whoever has cut the fabric has been able to follow. And so for the other, I'm just going to be cutting right in between those lines. And then just trim off the top selvage. I just want to leave a little bit of the background fabric on. There are two different ways you're going to be able to block these. Once I have all of the pieces trimmed off, if you have an ironing board, you can do it on an ironing board. If you don't, you can do it on a large surface. So let's do the first one on a large surface. If you have a large mat, this is a fun time to use it. But you just need a surface that's going to be large enough that this whole piece of panel can lay down flat. And then we need to make this panel damp. And just a bottle with water will be fine. I'm just going to dampen it. If you don't put it in the dryer after washing it, you're going to already have it damp, and you can work with it that way. Once this panel is damp, I'm going to be able to maneuver it to straighten it up. We need some straight-edged rulers or yardsticks. So I'm going to start by laying this out on a flat surface. Kitchen table, countertop, anything is going to work. The first thing we want to do is do the straight line. So I'm going to use the straight ruler. Now, if you use a ruler that has one of these great anti-slip surfaces, it'll be nice if you turn it upside down so you have the slippery part touching the fabric. I want a straight edge right along the edge of that print. You can do it along this edge, or you can do it along this edge. I want to make the ink line or the pattern straight. I'm going to be able to move the fabric just with my hands by moving it in one direction or moving it in the other. And I'm going to use the straight edge of that ruler to help me by having that straight edge down, and I can see where some of the fabric is not following that straight edge. Take that fabric and tuck it up underneath that ruler, and other parts I'm going to be able to take it and pull it this way. So you're going to be able to push and pull the fabric underneath this ruler until you have a nice straight line. Once that edge is done, I want to do the long edge. You can use a square ruler or a long-edged ruler. What I want to do is make sure that I do not move the straight edge that I've already done. So I'll put the one edge of the square up along that straight line, and I'm going to be able to adjust this second edge. You can see the edge of this ruler and the fabric is not squared up. And without moving this top edge, I'm going to shift this fabric into place. I can pull it a little bit until it comes nice and straight. And I can also pull it from underneath. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use straight edges, and I'm pulling and pushing the fabric in until these edges are straight all the way around. It's going to be easy to pull the fabric going one way or the other. Because of it being damp, it's very pliable. Once you have all of those edges squared up, the inside, you're going to notice that you're going to have some parts that are sticking up. Those parts will lie down flat. You just need to tap them and move them into the position that you want them in. That dampness is going to help you. And just by tapping them down and moving that fabric ever so slightly, you are going to be able to get this panel to lie flat. An option is to put a little bit of starch on. So I'm going to spray it with spray starch while this is still damp. You can also use a starch alternative. When that starch dries and the fabric dries, it'll be just like you've pressed it. And just keep tapping those pieces down until they go flat. Now, if this has been a surface that you can't iron on, you're going to have to let this air dry. And this is a project I like to lay out at night and let it dry overnight, and then in the morning I can work on it. You can do the same thing on an ironing board, but your ironing board is going to have to be one of those large boards so this can all lay flat. And the only difference is we get to pin the edges. I'm still going to be able to pull and push the fabric so that it follows a straight edge, but I'll be able to just put a couple of pins in to hold it into the position I want. And then I'm going to be able to work my way all the way around. The fabric should not be pulling on the pins. The pins are just holding it in place. Once you have this all straightened, we're going to be able to iron it dry. Because this is already damp, we're not going to need steam. And we do not want to move this way because we're just going to stretch that fabric again. We want the fabric to go flat. So put the iron down and hold it for a second and lift up. And as you do that, you're going to dry that fabric and you're going to put it back into the spot that you want it in. And it's just a matter of pressing up and down until the fabric is dry. It's important to let this fabric cool down after you've pressed it. The reason is as fabric is warm, it's easy to stretch it again. We've already taken care of the stretching. We don't want to stretch it all over again. So let this fabric cool down, and then we're going to be able to remove it. Take out the pins, and you're going to be ready to use that panel. We now have that panel nice and straight. The key is washing it first, so we do get out some of the sizing, and it relaxes those fibers. And if you can wash it and do it right away, then you don't have to make it damp because it's already damp. You could do it with the iron or just let it dry overnight. And when you're finished, ready to use that, it's going to be perfectly square because you've made it square. Next video, let's take that panel and turn it into the advent calendar. And thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.